Okay, I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Personnel Committee of Newark City Council. Members present are myself, Floyd, Bub, Marmy, Guthrie, and Roletta. We have two ordinances before us tonight, but Mr. Guthrie asked if he could ask Mr. Law Director a procedural question first.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Doug, I've been studying the code some today, and I'm sort of stumbling around on the way I read the code. It seems to suggest that council votes to reject, or it is simply accepted. There's no reference to a vote to accept. And I just want to make sure. I have no problem with sending both of these pieces of legislation on the council, but I can't find the code anything regarding a vote to accept.
You can actually do it either way. What they say in the code is simply so that if someone, it's tied to the issue of the deadline, so that if either the union or the city doesn't act within that period, what's the impact of that non-action? So I think that you could do it either way. The way that it's proposed of having both pieces of legislation only being able to ultimately pass one of them, I think that's satisfactory.
Okay. We have been asked as a committee, instead of discussing these in committee, to move these on to full council so we can discuss them in full council and then vote on them there. So the first is to consider ordinance number 1401A, approving the fact finder's report received in connection with the collective bargaining negotiations between the City of Newark and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 109, and recommendations contained therein, and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion to accept 1401A?
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Roletta.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guthrie. All in favor signify by saying aye. Wait, is there any discussion? I'm sorry. Ms. Loomis, you want to come up to the microphone, please, and state your name and...
Rhonda Loomis, 870 West Church Street. This is right now to Mr. Roletta, and this is the tone that it's going to set. We must eliminate the influence of money on our elections and on our policy making. We must eliminate the influence of special interests on our elections and on our legislation. We must fight for government of the people, by the people, and for the people. 41 days into your position on council and on this personnel committee, you are faced with proving the integrity you ran on by abstaining from any debate and any vote on compensation for the Newark Firefighter Union. The union, whose letter I have here, says to me, Mr. McElfresh and union members wanted to screen me, to which I respectfully declined in the chance that in the first months of 2014, I would have to vote on their pay. The definition of screening means many things to many people. To me, it's a massive conflict of interest. Mr. Roletta, I have read your statement that it is not illegal to accept a donation from the Local 109 Firefighters Union. However, that amount equaled 1/3 of your council salary, $2,500, and it is an obscene amount, not illegal. But I contend that it is highly disreputable for you to now, 41 days later, less than 2 months after you swore on a Bible to be a good steward of my tax dollars, you now have the ability to grant the same union something in the form of salary payment. No matter the fact finder's results, and I have no idea, I don't care if it's zero, I don't care if they have to give back, I don't care if it's an increase. You must prove that you are truly the new, fresh difference in our local government that your campaign pressed, and abstain based on the perception, as what Ms. Hall said, being beholden to anyone. She stated she would have been uncomfortable with more than what she got. In January 2012, I have pictures here that show your peers, one newly elected, Jeremy Blake, another who wrote in favor of you, Mr. and Mrs. Kennedy, as well as Dr. and Mrs. Green, your peers in the Democratic Party, with signs out front in January 2012 that said, money out, democracy in. Legislators owe loyalty to Americans, not any lobby. We are their employers. Those were the signs by Mr. Blake, the Greens, and the Kennedys. Surely, this is not on a case-by-case basis. These signs were not dependent on what the case was, right? As your mentor accused a member of council in the first 12 days of the new majority of bad behavior, I say then this must smack of the same thing to you. We have all heard this conveyed. Something doesn't pass the smell test. And it surely doesn't. $2,500. 1/3 your pay on council. Legal? Yes. Decent, proper, moral? No. My fellow Fourth Warders and I will be watching. I can't make you do the right thing, Alex. Can't do it. I remind you that every dime in the city's budget is on the backs of citizens. I hope the entire city takes note of money and its influence on campaigns and candidates. Mr. Oletta, break the mold. Be different. This is the moment where we find out what kind of character and integrity you have, not just rhetoric on a mailer. Do you walk the walk or talk the talk, or just talk the talk? As of this moment, I have faith in what you're going to do. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Madam Chairwoman, may I have the opportunity to respond? I believe there are no grounds to say it's a conflict of interest for an official to serve on the Personnel Committee or vote on the Fact Finder's report simply because he or she is supported by workers in their community. I don't base my positions on who supports me. People support me based on my positions. That's all I can say this time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other discussion? All those in favor of ordinance number 1401A, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Passes 5-0. Okay, the second ordinance is to consider ordinance 1401B, rejecting the fact finder's report received in connection with the collective bargaining negotiations between the City of Newark and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 109, and recommendations contained therein and declaring an emergency. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Bud. Second?
Second.
By Marnie. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that I am supporting this because there has been the entire council deserves to vote on both of these measures, and my vote will be different on this for full council, but I do believe that the entire council deserves to vote on it. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'll be voting in the affirmative.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. These two items will move on to full council meeting, which begins at 6:30 tonight. And with that, we are adjourned, and finance is next.
We'll call the Finance Committee meeting together. Present are Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Bub, Mr. Cost, and myself. We have two pieces of legislation on the agenda tonight. The first one is to consider resolution number 1409, authorizing and directing the fire chief of the City of Newark to submit an application to the Lincoln Memorial Health Foundation for a 12-lead EKG grant. And Service Director, Safety Director, you speak on behalf of this?
It pleases the committee.
Okay, yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. As we know, Lincoln Memorial Hospital has been very philanthropic. They donate a lot to our safety forces, and once again, they realize the need. These pieces deal with the cardiac events we have in the community, and they're expensive. The previous service provider is outdating the current models, so we desperately need the help that Liquor Memorial is offering. I would ask, as a courtesy, you would expedite the process, as those funds are limited. I'd like to get us up there first in line, if you would, please.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bub, second by Ms. Floyd. And when you say expedite, it's just to waive the second reading because there's a March deadline coming.
If you would, please.
Everybody make note of that. All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And motion is approved. Thank you. Our second piece of legislation tonight is to consider resolution number 14-13, appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation. And
I'm John Trujillo. I'm the stormwater coordinator for the city. I'm speaking for Brian, who had to go out of town this evening.
well, welcome tonight.
Thank you. This is an appropriation of monies that were from a note that was sold last year in 2013. So that's part of our budget for the landfill work that we are continuing to do. Consists of mostly erosion control work currently. We've had some really bad storms and trying to get those fixed before the situation gets any more worse and more expensive.
Make a motion. Motion by Mr. Bud. Second by Mr. Cox. Any questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much for coming and speaking for that.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Anything else before the committee? See no other business, finance is adjourned. And service.
I want to open the service committee. Tonight we have Mr. Blake, Mr. Rath, Mr. Bob, Mr. Rometta, myself, Tom. Our first resolution is 1410, resolution approving renewal application for placement of farmland in an agricultural district and declaring an emergency. So, someone, Mr. Chair? Yes, sir. Brett. Okay.
This is just what, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just what it is. It's a renewal application to be placed in an agricultural district. That's all this is, a renewal. So it's already in place.
Your motion.
Second.
And there is an emergency on this, Mr. Rhodes?
I didn't write this. Is there an emergency on it? There is. There's an emergency on that.
That's required by statute. We have to respond to the county within a particular number of days of the date in which they filed their renewal application.
All right. Are there any questions from any members of the committee? Are there any questions from any members of the audience? Call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aye vote. Thank you. Next we have resolution 1411. As I get to it. through 14.
Five pages in on the packet.
Resolution number 1411. The following final resolution enacted by the City of Newark, Ohio, hereinafter referred to as the Legislative Authority, Local Public Agency, or LPA, in the matter of the below stated described project. Whereas on the 5th day of August 2013, the LPA enacted legislation proposing cooperation with the Director of Transportation for the described project. The project consists of upgrading signals at State Route 16 and Dayton Road and West Main Street and 30th Street lying within the City of Newark. And whereas the LPA shall cooperate with the Director of Transportation in the above described project as follows. The City of Newark agrees to assume and bear 100% of the entire cost of the improvement, less the amount of federal aid and state funds set aside by the Director of Transportation for the financing of this improvement from funds allocated by Federal Highway Administration, U.S. Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said it pretty correctly. We are upgrading the signals, State Route 16 to Dayton Road and West Main Street and 30th Street. The city's share is $10,800. Those funds are coming out of the license plate permissive tax fund.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Are there any questions of members of the committee? Any questions out of the audience? Take a vote to move on the council. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Next on the agenda is ordinance 13-44, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real properties generally described as 343 Eastern Avenue, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of single-family residence district to MFR multi-family residence district. This is already being moved on to council, and so we are here this evening for information and discussion and any questions. Mr. Reverend Booker.
Reverend Fred Booker, 1140 Clare Street, Pataskala, Ohio. I'm the Associate Minister of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church and the Executive Director of Shiloh Holistic Opportunity Programs, which sponsors Transition House at 343 Eastern Avenue. So I'm here to answer or clarify any questions that council or the public might have. This is our third, fourth time perhaps being here to answer questions, and so we are more than pleased to put the minds at ease of anyone who might have some issues regarding the transition house at 343 Eastern Avenue.
Are there questions out of the members of the committee?
I'd like to know if Councilwoman Hall has an opinion on this and what that might be, since it's in her district, in her ward.
Ms. Hall, would you like to give your views?
Yes.
Like to come up to the podium?
Mr. Chairman, and Reverend Booker, my view on this is I'm a little confused as to why you want the location where it is. I think it brings property values down a little bit. I would suggest maybe that if you would compromise and maybe Maybe compromise, perhaps continue as you are at this point and see how it goes. I'm concerned about the safety of the seniors. I know your heart is in the right place. I think it's wonderful. But it's a safety issue for me. So consider maybe leaving the house the way it is maybe for a year, see how it goes and see about the safety involved in this, and then come back in a year and check out the rezoning. So that's my comment.
Ms. Long? Thank you, Ms. Long. Mr. Rosenberg?
I have Richard Cook, who is director of our Second Chance Network, and he's going to talk about a lot of the activities that are going on with the Second Chance Network and with the residents of the house. But I would like to just clarify a few things in regard to the safety of the seniors. I assure you that there's no one more concerned with the safety of the seniors in Washington Square than I. Dr. Charles Noble, I think everyone here perhaps knows his name. He was the one that had the vision to build that housing on the east side of Newark. I serve on the housing board for Harvest Management Group, which manages the senior complexes. My concern is paramount in regard to the safety of the seniors at that particular location. However, my concern is paramount for everyone that's in need. And this is a population that is seriously underserved. And so we are trying to do the best we can, not only for the seniors, but for everyone in that community. There are individuals in that community right now who have absolutely no place to go. So the concern for the seniors in regard to this house versus the concern for the seniors in regard to the entire neighborhood, I think we are providing much more assurance by having a house that's monitored 24 hours a day, that's doing positive things in the neighborhood, that's helping young men to take care of their families and become tax-paying citizens. I think we're doing much more. Plus, being across the street from the Washington Square, the folks in the, I'll let Richard talk about that a little bit, but there are so many activities that we do to help and support the seniors in that apartment complex. In fact, they rely heavily upon the support of the young men that stay in that house. Richard, would you come up and talk about some of the activities, if you don't mind?
Yes, sir. That'd be fine.
My name is Richard Cook, 343 Eastern Avenue. I am director of Second Chance Network. I'm also the director of the Matthew House. And just to take a little flashback, I think Council Member Floyd last week said the president's opening this council with a prayer. Just to say a few things about our community, I have dedicated my life to helping others, and Second Chance Network is giving back to a community, and I happen to land in a community where not only we have lots of seniors, it was, I guess this place was deemed as maybe lower income, lower class, but once I got here, the vision was to get our seniors back in the community. Our seniors are our elders, so not to take up too much of you guys' time, we have a community dinner where not only we serve all the seniors, this is all the returning citizens and the guys that's in our transitional house, and that's a part of our recovery program. They serve the community, but not only do they serve the community, just by dinner, we fed the whole entire community, all shut in. This is every year. the seniors do rely on us. You know, we passed out over 2,000 pounds of food to the community, and it was for the seniors. And they come back, they knock on our door across the street. There's only 2 other houses on this block. They come, we provide services, we provide Similac, we provide food, transportation. This is all the returning citizens. Once these guys come from being incarcerated, they feel hopeless. And what we come to find out with Dr. Noble and Reverend Booker, that we have an epidemic. I'm getting calls all day long. So I know that it's a need for not only this transitional home, maybe some more. I'm getting calls from Granville, from corporate, from down, about their children on heroin. And what we were trying to do is stop that 14-year-old, that 15-year-old from ever picking up. So once these guys come through our program, they feel so much love and they want to give back. They get up and they shovel snow, they go get groceries. The seniors call over to the Matthew House. It's not one senior in that building is afraid. You know, that's because we have block parties. You know, we go door to door, make sure the elders are all right. The elders are the fabric of our community. We have so many. If you was to take a poll or go down there, every senior, probably 99%, would say, I know something about Second Chance. These guys and women once was disenfranchised. They are rebuilding our community. We do a volunteer get out to vote, where we went door to door, you know, bipartisan, you know, and the only way that we can have a voice in this community is to vote. The only way we're going to learn something is to get our seniors. Our seniors love us. We do a block watch. The seniors love everything about it. They know about the transitional home. They said the safety, if it was something I could say today, is to get the roads plowed, because the fire trucks been coming out there so late. You know what I mean? Many of the elder residents are being getting sick. They said that's the safety concern, and they wish that they can come down here. So I don't want to take up too much time, but not only is it a need for us to have this house here, it's the need to maybe have 10 of these houses. We get hundreds of calls from all over. You know what I mean? Even from inside this court. It's an epidemic. But once these guys feel this love, I don't know what's happening. These guys are getting baptized. Nobody's forcing them in the church. These guys are going to their recovery. We have 5 recovery programs. We have 1 recovery program inside the senior building. You know what I mean? And it feels good. And the only way we're going to tackle this epidemic here in Newark and Granville is to say, hey, we're not going to sweep our children underneath the rugs. Guys made a mistake, and they deserve a second chance. And yes, for the safety of the house, it's monitored 24 hours. We haven't had nothing but minimal problems. All our guys are working right now. Guys are paying child support, and they're eager to know what's next in their life. So they're taking accountability, and we take accountability. And I think it's a time not to be aggressive or nothing like that. That we need more of these places in Newark. And God willing, it's going to be more addicts. We're trying to stop that teenager from never ever using. So if the guys that once been incarcerated and women are been on drugs, they're part of this program, we want them to be able to keep giving back. Because once they give back, other people open up in these rooms and say, hey, my family has somebody in danger of being on heroin or something like that. And I am on the streets, you know, so I minister to the community. But the elders are in favor of everything. I didn't want to bring 200 of our elders down here, you know what I mean? I know that wasn't important, but this was important to the elders. They had a meeting after this once they seen it in the media and things like that. And they said, how could it be? To make a long story short, it's a need for us to look at this East Side community as a vibrant community. Our voter registration numbers are up. Our seniors are very active in our community with Shiloh, our East Side Day, things like that. And we're going to continue to fight, and I hope that we do the right thing with council and get us out of here, and maybe we can see y'all some other place. God bless y'all, and thank y'all for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Scotty. Councilman Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate something that I kind of started to discuss and discussed at council, at the last council meeting. Zoning changes and proposals, it is the responsibility of all of council and the administration, including, this goes to the administration first, and they give their opinion as far as whether or not the Planning Commission supports it or not. They indicated that they do support this. I think that as with any zoning, it's our responsibility to look at the property owner's rights and the property owner rights of our citizens inside the city of Newark. And you don't just look at the person who's signing the petition and putting the petition in front of us, but you look at all those property owner rights, those around the area, the surrounding area also. The Ohio Revised Code indicates, and also the way that our zoning ordinances are set up, is that we do not vote on specific use on any kind of a zoning. It is everything within that classification. You look at the classification for the zoning, is it appropriate for the area? Is it appropriate for that particular site? Because it may not be, depending upon the size. It may fit in the area, but the size may not be conforming to that. So you look at the zoning proposal as what it is and everything that fits within that classification. And does it fit in that area with the surrounding classifications? Because we also do not spot zone. So I urge this council, when it does come to vote, I know it's already on the table, but before you vote, look at everything within that zoning classification. Look at the surrounding area as far as what is zoned around it. Do you feel that that fits for that neighborhood? Not a specific use. What the use is of no relevance other than the fact that it doesn't fit in there. What these gentlemen are attempting to do, it may or may not happen even if the zoning changes. They still have to meet all of the guidelines of our codes, and property maintenance code included, and there are strict guidelines in there that also have to be adhered to. So this is just one thing that they're trying to do, but it's our responsibility just to vote on the zoning. Is that the proper zoning classification for that particular area? And so I urge you to do that and look at those things when you're doing your research and determining whether or not you're going to support or not support the zoning, as I am going to do, and I have done. I've looked at what is currently in the surrounding area and how will it impact. So that's all that I'm asking. Thank you.
Carol Floyd. I'm very familiar with this area. I grew up, I always thought somebody was going to come down Eastern Avenue and run into our house and my bedroom was going to fall down on their car. So I'm very familiar with the houses in this area. And as Doug said, we're talking in terms of zoning. We're talking in terms of how it's zoned. Drive down the neighborhood, look at the zoning, look at the houses around it. But I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Nancy Whalen. I'm also going to speak to the zoning as Mr. Marmy and Ms. Floyd did. I have a handout though. Mr. Marmy didn't have a handout. This is the actual, this is off the website of the city, so I'm assuming it's correct as far as the zoning. I mean, that's what, it's not correct? Anyways, this is the zoning of the area. You probably looked at it already. What you see in blue is single family, and what you see in red is multifamily residence. The multifamily residents are apartments. The blue are, I assume, single family houses. To change it to MFR, I think would be spot zoning, and Mr. Marmy and I might disagree or agree on that, I'm not sure. Because I don't see in right that vicinity, I don't see any other single family houses zoned MFR. I see apartment complexes. That would be the Sheets building, that would be Washington Square Apartments. I know it's really tiny to see on there. And as far as speaking to the use, I do agree the letter of the law is you are voting for the zoning. But it would almost be naive of us to think that that's all we're doing, because we all know what the use is. It was on the application. I don't know anything about this program. I support what they're doing. I volunteer at the men's homeless shelter. Some of the men there deal with drug and alcohol addiction. We stay pretty full with 26 beds and a couple cots, so we do need places like this. But I would urge council, as Mr. Marmee did, to look at your zoning. I know last May, Mr. Koss brought forward legislation on single-family residence, but that was for boarding houses, not rooming houses. So, you changed something through legislation for single-family houses also to help protect the integrity of single-family residences. So I would urge council, like Mr. Marmee, to really study this. Zoning is a big issue. It can affect property values. It can affect the neighborhood. How you're zoning things, either MFR or single family. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I was just wanting to make myself available to answer any additional questions.
The building is being used right now, as we speak, as a transition house. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And if I may ask, how many people are in that building?
Currently we have five individuals in that house, including Richard Cook, who is our 24-hour-a-day monitor.
So you have
four individuals,
and then you. Now, if I'm correct on this, I think with the city the total number is 4 to be considered single-family residents.
Yes, sir.
So
actually it's a total of 5, but counting up, I think it's 5 counting our monitor.
That is not my understanding. My understanding is that it's 4. If 4 unrelated people living in a house to still be considered single-family residents. I get a clarification on that, Mr. Hall Director.
That would be the definition of family, that's correct.
4? Okay.
Yes.
4 unrelated.
So, my concern is very similar to Ms. Hall's as to why, first of all, let me start over again. I don't think there's anyone in this room that questions the reason that you're doing what you're doing, that questions the integrity or the purpose, or doesn't have an amazing appreciation for all the things you've done for this community. I think everybody in this room would agree with that. The Noble Shiloh Baptist Church, yourself, no one. So I think the reason that we're giving this as much consideration as we are is because it's you folks and the kind of job you've done in this community. Having said that, my question again is, why couldn't you start so that we don't have to change the zoning? Couldn't it be 3 people that you're working with and your supervisor? There'd be 4 unrelated people living in the house. There'd be no zoning change. There'd be no conflict. There'd be no one could say a word. And it would be just dandy as a start. And let's try that for a year and see. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what kind of neighbor you are. Let's see what kind of neighbors you have. I'm just trying to look for a way to compromise that this could work, because I think it's essential. I think it's a good idea.
Question.
Mr. Rapp.
How long have you been operating the house as it is?
We've been operating since probably mid-August.
Okay.
We've been operating since mid-August.
Okay.
Without really any incident of any consequence.
And what kind of range of numbers have you had living in that house? If I had to ask that, I'm sorry.
We've had up to 7. We've had up to 7. We monitor very closely. We're in close partnership with the probation department, Kelly Miller and those folks. They do random drug tests. They do weekly drug tests. They have an intensive program that they're required to be in attendance at. AA meetings, NA meetings, educational, cognitive skill building. There's something going on all the time to keep them busy and to keep them occupied. And in addition to that, it's the community service that they provide to the community. And that's all part of their program. So it's since August, we've not had any incident in this. We've been trying to get this settled even since the beginning, because we started out, we really didn't know all of the requirements, et cetera. And so we've been in consultation with Joe Paul and maintenance. He's come by to do a pre-inspection to try to let us know what kinds of things we might need to do. We were advised that we needed to do this by the city. The city advised us that we needed to take this course. So we're here because the city advised us that this is the course that we should take. And so we've been trying to cross every hurdle that we've been asked to do along the way from the beginning. And so there's been nothing but positive things come out of this program. Judge Marceline and the judges, they support the program. They screen the individuals that go into the house to make sure that these individuals have a proper fit, that they're definitely going to be concerned about the safety of the community. That's their job. And it's our job to do the same thing. I understand the concern, but when you look at all of the controls that we have in place, and all of the good that it's doing to the community, I think it more than offsets any concerns we might have.
Mr. Chair, Reverend Booker, I just wanted to get some clarification. My understanding is, and I think that yourself and Mr. Cook alluded to it, but I believe that in some of our neighborhoods we have a major drug issue in our neighborhoods. And I think that what, the different things that you sort of just cited off is speaking to the main issue of that when someone's either coming out of an addiction or coming out of incarceration, they need that peer support group, is what I'm hearing that your group is providing. I mean, it's so important to have other individuals on a regular basis coming together to get out of whatever hardship or barrier they may be facing.
That's correct.
And so what this, the Matthews House and what Shiloh has been doing is been bringing these folks together in order to make sure that they're successful, that they do get employment, that they do become, they get out of that cycle of jail, prison, and back out on the street and jail, prison. So you're trying to break that cycle is what I'm hearing you say. And I've had opportunity to attend some functions from Second Chance. I've had opportunity to speak with members of the program. I have a family member myself who's involved in the program. I mean, we're a public body, so our whole families get out there sometime. But I guess I'm just curious more. You sort of alluded to it, but can you speak a little more about the peer support that happens amongst the men, the groups that are involved in the NA meetings, the AA meetings? There's always something daily to keep these people together, because first they got to identify that they have some type of an addiction, either alcohol or narcotic or whatever else the addiction may be. I mean, sometimes my addiction is KFC and I got to stay away from it. But the first thing is to admit to an addiction, and then to be around others that will support you in order to continue on, because any addiction is going to be a daily process. You're trying to get through it. So I'm just hoping you might be able to speak a little bit about that. I think you alluded to it when you were listing off programs, but I'm curious to hear about sort of maybe the success that you've had with the men and the participants.
We started out like I said earlier. There's a conference between the probation department and the judges and ourselves. Sometimes it'll be Matthews House, other places like us sitting around the table determining, where these particular individuals who might be released early might reside. And then so the decisions are made about who fits, who perhaps does not fit. And then, of course, when we get an individual, the probation officer already has certain things that they're going to be required to do on a daily, weekly basis or whatever. In addition to that, we sit down and talk to them about their particular goals. We establish a program for them that we think needs to be in addition to whatever they're required to do from the probation officer. And then, of course, we take the responsibility of making sure that they go where they're supposed to go, when they're supposed to be there, and make sure that they come back to the house when they're supposed to be back in the house. So there's 3 pages of house rules. There's a big board that we have right at the entrance of the house that shows where each individual is 24 hours a day, monitored by Mr. Cook. We take this very, very seriously. And we take it very seriously because it's community, and we take it very seriously because we want to really help these individuals. We've got the community outreach programs. We've got the Second Chance Network, Second Chance Recovery groups. And this is in addition to the other things that are already available, and that's NA and AA and LAP and drug court. So there's just so many control mechanisms that we have in place. I'm a little perplexed at why we have this question about and concern about the seniors, because this group does more for the seniors than anybody in this city. They feed them, they carry furniture for them, they have dinners for them for Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's just numerous things that they're involved with on a regular basis. In the summertime, they cook for them at least once a month and physically carry the dinners to each senior's house in those apartments. We just try to do the best we can. That's all I can say.
Yes, Reverend Booker, again, we all appreciate that you're doing the best you can do. We all a great deal of admiration. For me, I'm very hard-pressed to change zoning from a single-family residence. When somebody owns a piece of property in a single-family residence area, they're expecting the other properties to stay single-family residence. There's one side of me that here's the purpose, here's what you're doing. On the other side, I realize the zoning decision has to be based on simply a zoning decision and not on the use. But as Nancy said, it's kind of naive not to have in the back of your mind the use as well. But I said, I'm not here to question what you're trying to do. My question is the use of the property and the zoning that exists on it.
I understand.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any other questions out of members of council? Any questions out of the audience?
Yes, sir. Is this considered a rooming house?
Would you please come to the podium and give your name, as we've asked everyone else to?
Yep. Lisa Best. Is this a rooming house?
I think the city's intention is that when the zoning issue plays itself forward, depending on the outcome of the zoning vote, and then on the use of the house following that vote, it all really depends on how that vote goes. Let's assume the property is rezoned and it's used in the manner that Reverend Booker has described to us here today. My understanding it is going to be subject to the rooming house requirements.
So it will be inspected by the fire department?
And property maintenance.
Okay. And when they had 9 people living in the structure?
8.
Okay, 8. Where did those people go?
Ms. Beth, would you please direct your questions to the chair?
Well, because they're directed to him, he's going to answer it.
Your questions would be directed to the chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, you tell me. Where did those other people go?
Reverend, would you like to approach the podium?
The house is a 2-story, 3-bedroom, actually 4-bedroom house. Denison University was kind enough to donate bunk beds to us. So we've got 2 sets of bunk beds in one room, one set of bunk beds in another room, and then of course single beds. We established the space based upon information we got from property maintenance. They told us how the space had to be allocated for safety reasons. there was so many square feet, and like there had to be 3 feet from each wall, wherever you have your bunk bed established, and 3 feet between, at least 3 feet between each bunk bed. And so that's how we, based on advice from the city, that's how we originally established it. So that's why we were able to house that many. That was about all, that reached the limit based on the rules that we were given.
So you weren't told 4 people in a single-family residence. You were told how many people?
Yeah, we were told how many based on property management's advice, how many we could have at this when we originally established.
I guess my question, again, Mr. Koss,
Thank you, ma'am.
is they had 9 people in that building. They were told that they couldn't have 9 people in that building. Is that correct?
That's what I'm asking Reverend Booker. Because, again, a single-family residence is 4 unrelated adults, period.
We were given advice, and you call it detrimental reliance, if you want, whatever you want to call it, but we were given advice from city official that we could have set it up in this particular way and we would be in compliance based on the square footage of the house and based on the way we arranged the beds in the house.
From which city official, Mr. Koss?
This was our original. No, we didn't want to, we just want to be in compliance.
I guess, but again, my question is, those 9 people that were in that building that weren't supposed to be there, you were somehow told that they weren't allowed to be there. Where did those people go?
Never had 9 people.
Had 8.
Okay, where did those people go? That weren't allowed to be there. That's all I want to know. And
am I to assume that they are sent back to jail for incarceration?
We had one volunteer guy that came from the Spencer house, and he moved on, to Mount Vernon. And one of the guys violated some of Marceline's rules, and Marceline sent him back, under his probation. But he was under lap court. He was under the jurisdiction of the court's program. He violated some rule within the court. So we lost that one, and one was a volunteer, and he decided that he wanted to move on. It wasn't because it was an infraction or he did something like misbehavior and things like that. And the most we had in the house was 7. I guess for me it'd be 8. But
okay, we keep changing numbers here. But I guess my main concern was, y'all are really interested in helping people. You have 7, 8, 9, 12 people in this house. You're told that that's not what you're supposed to do. So I guess my question was, how do you get rid of the excess people? And you're telling me that all conveniently they broke the rules and stuff. So, as has been said before, the zoning is a simple question. And that's what we're here to talk about. But I have a lot of questions as to, where you get your advice from and how the place is run. Thanks.
Mr. Rath. Thank you. Mr. Murray?
Yes.
We do have to watch our time.
Right.
For 6:30.
And this is just a general comment. I think a lot of confusion stems from something that Ms. Waylew actually indicated. The folks from property maintenance enforce the property maintenance code, and they go out and they inspect for certain things. They're not out there as a zoning inspector, so they're going to give advice according to property maintenance. Someone in zoning will talk about what is proper for the zoning classification, and those two are somewhat in conflict of each other. I firmly believe that we need to look at those things. I know that, there's some things that are going on in this community that the definition in our zoning of 4 unrelated persons, I want to look at that and revisit that to see whether or not that's appropriate. I feel that there are things that are going to occur that can occur in a single-family residential area that is not intended, and I think that we need to make sure that it does not happen. Basically, 4 individuals who are unrelated, whether they're going to college together, they can reside together, and as long as they don't have individual contracts, then it could happen right next door to any one of us in a single-family residence housing. And they can live there and reside there, and they're not in violation of anything. However, the property maintenance code says that that's a rooming house, but zoning says that it isn't. So, there's different definitions, and there's other situations that can occur that, property maintenance is going to enforce it as a rooming house, but zoning is saying that it's not. So these folks, what they're trying to do, they're trying to do the right thing. I believe in that. But as far as some different things, as far as communication and what they're being told, they're probably being told different things from different people. And they're just trying to get to where they're supposed to be. Whether or not that'll happen, it's, first step is the zoning. And we're going to vote on that zoning next Tuesday. So that's just their first step. And then they'll be told, according to what the end result of that zoning change is or is not, then they'll be given direction as far as where they need to go. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit.
I just want to try to say something really quick. I know you guys are finishing. I'm on behalf of Franklin County Reentry. I'm Amy Wicks. I'm appointed by Marilyn Brown, my county commissioner, to a Reentry Coalition Homeland Security Committee. And I'm here to represent Franklin County in support of their sober homes. I plan through my nonprofit to start these all over the country. It's the only thing that's going to save this country from the epidemic of addiction that's hitting Newark bad. I meet with Jay Hottinger tomorrow. But regardless, I went and visited their sober homes. I was in prison. I've written a book. I've changed my life. If it wasn't for the principles that these sober homes have in place that Richard does, I wouldn't have, I'd be dead today. And, many of my friends would. I know how the house runs. I looked at it, I visited, it's so inspiring. Everyone should go and, look at the home. But I just am here. I drove from Franklin County, rushed over here to get here so you guys can know that I know Franklin County is in support of these sober homes. And I'll be building them. And he's one of my role model sober homes. It's a God thing. And, I work for God. I don't have a boss besides him. I make no money, and I work tirelessly for my cause. So I'll pray, I'll send God emails, because God answers them, that you guys go with what, they're asking. I feel like you will, because I'm listening to you, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Here's my card, if you guys want.
Councilman Ryan.
Mr. Chairman, just in the case of brevity, we're compelled to start the city council meeting in less than 60 seconds. Without a motion, I'd suggest that we adjourn. We could always bring this up after council if you'd like.
Yes, and also all this will move on to full council for next Tuesday as well. Thank you all. Thank you all for being part of this.
Thank you.
Adjourned.